Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to week 2 of the digital marketing playbook for vision and hearing care practices. If you're receiving this okay, can you drop an okay, or can you type okay into the comments box? Just give me a sign of life so I know that this broadcast is getting out there. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Let's get rid of that. So yes, if you could just drop a comment, just to give me confirmation that you're hearing and seeing me okay. And we'll get started in just a second. All right, well, so let's get started. So I'd like to start by asking you a question. So if I could stone cold guarantee to get a living, breathing patient into your clinic today, how much would you pay for that patient? Okay. Would you pay $50, $100, $500? Would you pay $1,000? So it's an important question for reasons which we'll get into in a minute. But I think it's a question that a lot of practice owners struggle with for a couple of reasons. So one, there are a lot of unknown variables in that question. Like if I said I can guarantee a patient in your clinic, I mean, what kind of patient are we talking about? So if you're an optometrist, are we talking about somebody coming in for a routine eye check, or are we talking about somebody who's coming in maybe to get started on ortho K contact lenses? If you're an audiologist, are we talking about somebody coming in for a hearing assessment, or somebody who's coming in to purchase high-end hearing aids with like Bluetooth connectivity and AI adjustments and all that sort of stuff? So there's a lot of unknowns in that question, but I think in a sense that mirrors what happens in real life. I mean, when a new patient comes through your door, you don't necessarily know what they're there for and what their motivations are and so on. So that's one reason why it's a somewhat difficult question to answer. And I think the other reason it's difficult, or why practice owners sometimes get their answer wrong, is because there are a lot of what I'll call value multipliers that they don't take into consideration. And we'll get into what some of those are in this in this live stream today. So what are we going to learn today? Well, so I'd like to talk about understanding the true patient lifetime value and why that's critical for your marketing success. I'd like to talk about the patient lifetime value, or let's call it PLV formula, and how that applies to ophthalmologists, audiologists, optometrists. These are the three industry verticals that my digital marketing agency works with. We're going to talk about some of those patient lifetime value multipliers that often get overlooked. We'll talk about some practical steps you can take to actually increase your lifetime value. And also talk about how you can calculate or estimate what that number is and how you can actually use that, the practical applications of it. So I'm going to start again with some bold assumptions here. So I'm assuming that you're here because you're the owner or manager or planning to become owner or manager of an optometry practice, an audiology practice, or an ophthalmology practice. Second bold assumption I'm making is that you're actually interested in growing your practice. So you're not here, you don't have a lifestyle business, but you're actually, you're actually running your clinic for the purposes of making a profit and growing and that kind of thing. So who am I? Well, so my name is Paul Salloway. So I've been in digital marketing since around 2008. At the end of 2022 or 2022, I started Optics Digital Marketing with a focus on working with exclusively with optometrists in Australia, New Zealand. And since that time, we've expanded the agency. I've got more people working for me now. We started working with also ophthalmologists and audiologists. So if you want to like see some of the results that we've got, I would suggest you go back and look at last week's live stream. It's in our YouTube account. It's also on LinkedIn, and there you'll see where I presented some of the digital marketing results we've got, some of the testimonials that we've got from clients. Also on the website, the website address is on the screen there. If you check that out, you'll see some testimonials on there. So I'm not going to take up too much time with that today. I think we've got a lot to cover, so I'd like to sort of get into it. So patient lifetime value. So if you don't understand your patient value, then every marketing decision feels like a gamble. Okay, so I think some practice owners, they judge the success of their marketing efforts by the first visit. Okay, so whether that first person, whether that patient on their first visit, walks out with a pair of spectacles or walks out with some sort of hearing device, or whether they sign up for like a LASIK treatment or something like that. So sometimes, often, in fact, it's not the first appointment where you really make money as a practice. It takes a few visits. So if you don't understand all that, if you don't consider all that, then marketing feels too expensive and you might shy away from it. Your marketing budgets might be inconsistent. You're either not putting in enough money or not sticking with campaigns long enough. So healthcare is a long-term relationship, not a transaction, and healthcare is sticky. I've been going to the same GP for more than 20 years, and she's in her 70s now, and every time I go in there, I say, "You're not going to retire anytime soon, are you?" She says no. So she's in her 70s now, but I think most people are like that if they have a healthcare provider, and unless they're getting really terrible service, if they're getting a halfway decent service from a doctor, from optometrist, they'll stick with them. So I think that there is long-term value to be had when you get somebody in the door for the first time. There's a good chance they're going to stick with you, and you're going to be able to enjoy a long-term relationship with them. So patient lifetime value. So this estimation, it helps you decide like how much you can afford to spend on marketing for each patient acquisition. It helps you see or consider whether your marketing efforts are really profitable, and how confidently you can scale those efforts. So does that make sense, what I've talked about so far? If it does, can you type a 1? Can you put a 1 in the comment box? Does it all seem reasonable, what I've said so far? Right. So what is this patient lifetime value formula? What is this PLV formula? So it's pretty simple, really. It's just the average revenue per visit, how many visits per year, and retention for a number of years. So with every patient, how much on average do they spend when they come in to your clinic? How many times a year do they come in? It might be that average might be less than 1. And how many years do they stick with you? So, and the formula is the same, but the economics is going to be a little bit different for optometry clinics, audiology clinics, ophthalmology clinics. So in the case of optometry, people are coming in for their routine eye exams, hopefully, glasses, contact lenses. So these are things that they purchase, they replace. They often buy second pairs of glasses. They often upgrade to maybe like better lenses. And then, of course, you've got all your specialty services as well, things like dry eye treatment, myopia control, vision therapy, that sort of thing. And plus, there's also, ocular disease management. So people who are maybe getting a little older, they come to see you for cataracts and getting those checked, and all the rest of it, doing your OCT exams. So these are some of the revenue streams for your clinic. People are coming in. I would say that the visit frequency is moderate. Like most people come in, once a year or once every couple of years at least. Audiology. So with audiology, I think that like the visit frequency is a lot less. So I was talking to one of our clients this week, and I asked him about the patient visit frequency. He said that with a lot of their patients, they only really come in when they've got a problem with their hearing aid, when something's broken or something's not working properly. But as audiologists, I'm sure you'd like to get your patients coming in more frequently to check on their hearing aids and make sure they're adjusted properly and that type of thing. They probably come in every 4 to 6 years for device replacements. But so where the real profit is to be made is really in high value devices, like device upgrades, and getting devices that have a lot of those advanced features in them. With ophthalmology, so I think we can say like it's mostly like, yes, of course there are patients who are going to be coming in for things like anti-VEGF injections and so on. Those will be long-term, repeat visit patients. But I think a lot of cases, the patients are coming in for one procedure. So it might not be necessarily be one visit, but it'll be like for one procedure, like a LASIK, refractive lens exchange treatment or something like that. Glaucoma treatment. So I think that sort of visit frequency is going to look a lot different to optometry and audiology clinics. So what are some of these hidden value multipliers that I talked about? Well, this is why we have to think about more than just the first visit. So if somebody comes in for a pair of spectacles into your optometry practice, so having made that first decision about a new pair of glasses, what are some of the second decision effects that we need to consider? So people might get new glasses. They probably want to get a prescription sunglasses as well, especially in Australia. If they do a lot of driving, they might realize that their main pair of glasses aren't ideal for driving. So that's extra eyewear that you can have a discussion with them about purchasing. Backup glasses, So I think that when I talk to some of our clients, they often talk about the concept of an eyewear wardrobe. We don't have just one pair of shoes that we wear for everything. We've got several different pairs of shoes that we wear for different occasions, whether that be work, whether that be socializing, going to the beach. So eyewear shouldn't be different. So I think that there is sort of like opportunity there to talk with your patients about different eyewear for different situations. Occupational eyewear, that's another opportunity. So people who do a lot of work around the yard, like mowing the lawn, I always make sure I put on the safety glasses. If you're working in an environment where you got stuff flying around, so there's an opportunity there to talk to your patients too about occupational eyewear. Custom earplugs. So this is something I think goes under the radar a little bit, but if you've got a patient who's coming in for a hearing check, you might want to talk to them about getting custom earplugs made that fit perfectly for their ear, Like if you're sleeping with a noisy partner who snores, the custom earplugs could be something that you're really interested in. For work, some people work in noisy environments, musicians, for example. Swimming, even some people suffer a lot from water in the ear when they're swimming, so custom earplugs could really help in that sort of situation. So for you audiologists, that's a revenue stream, a second decision revenue stream that you could tap into. So if patients are sticking with you for a long time, as I said, it's often not that first visit, but it's a later visit where after they've established trust with you, they're ready for higher value decisions. So this could be like premium lenses on their glasses, upgrading, getting multi-coatings on their lenses, frame upgrades. I was talking with one of our optometry clients the other week, and he was saying that like they get patients who decide to get coating upgrades, like anti-reflective coatings, that sort of thing. And then in the next visit, they think, oh, I'd like to maybe save a little bit of money, so we won't get the coating. And then he says, almost always they come back a week later and say, no, we want that coating, and we just miss the benefits of having it. So I think that there are things that you can do as a practitioner to increase the lifestyle experience for your patients, but often that they need to develop some sort of like trust with your practice before they're ready to make that move. Contact lenses, right? So I was reading an article just yesterday where they did a study and they found that patients who move on to contact lenses are 60% more profitable than those who stick with glasses. And that might seem counterintuitive because, as we know, that the profit margin on contact lenses themselves is pretty compressed. But I guess there's all of the like the fitting and the frequency of visits is another important thing as well. So like people who are contact lens wearers, I think, understand that they have to come back and get things checked much more regularly. So from this article anyway, it said that contact lens wearers are more profitable than purely spectacle wearers. But I remember seeing an article last year, I think it was in My Vision magazine, might have been another one, but it mentioned that something like only 40% of optometrists actually even have a discussion with their patients about whether they would be interested in trying contact lenses. So there's a lot of money being left on the table there. Things like dry eye treatment, doing like lid debridements. If you've got an IPL device, right? If you've invested in that, so that could be a really good revenue stream for you. It's something I think people are getting more aware of. Even like there's kind of like a whole, I think, a trend towards ocular aesthetics now. So last year I talked with UK optometrist Sharon Flora, and she has a whole clinic now, Medi-Spa. So she calls it the eye retreat, I think. So it's about not just getting your eyes checked out, but actually getting eyes that look and feel great. So I think that there is this kind of trend in eye care to take on more of the aesthetic aspects of eye care as well. So like ophthalmologists, for example, like blepharoplasty, drooping eyelids, fixing that sort of thing. So these are all higher value decisions that somebody might not take the first time they walk into your clinic. LASIK, so somebody might come in for a LASIK treatment when they're 35, and when they're 45, they might be looking for a presbyopia treatment, like a presbyond procedure, something like that. So these are all high value decisions that come from establishing trust. Another multiplier is that people move through various life stages. Like if you've got somebody in their 20s who's been a regular patient with you, they get married, they have kids, they start a family, then they're bringing in their kids for like pediatric optometry, okay, getting vision development checks done. That's a great opportunity to also talk to them at that very early stage about myopia control. Give them advice on how they can prevent myopia progression and make them aware of some of the actual therapies and treatments that you have available, if that is the case. As adults, get into their careers and they spend more time at computer screens, and then you've got issues like digital eye strain, binocular vision dysfunction, so people might be experiencing headaches. As I said, so people go through different stages of life, and at each stage there are different vision and hearing challenges that you could potentially help them address. Older patients, we've got a thing in Australia now where the population is aging out, so a lot more people who 10 years ago were middle-aged are now sort of approaching that time of life where they need to think about things like cataracts and glaucoma a lot more seriously. And then there's the friend and family referrer multiplier. So I talked last week at length about word of mouth referrals. I said it's not something that you really want to base your whole marketing strategy around, but it is a kind of like a cherry on top. So one patient who comes in and is very happy with the experience they had, they're likely to refer you or mention you to their partner, their boyfriend, girlfriend. They're likely to bring in or mention you to their children, and they might have adult children, for example, parents, colleagues. So there's a whole social network there that suddenly opens up to you. I mean, that's how I found my optometrist. Was a family member referred her and said, look, you really should visit this person because she does a great job. And the thing also for clinicians is that these people who are coming in from referrals are often pre-qualified. They've been told about what it is that you can do. They've been told about some of the services that you offer. So these are often higher converting. That conversation goes a lot easier because they've already been pre-qualified. Then there's the whole online aspect to it. So if you get a new patient in the clinic, they have a good experience, they leave a Google review. So if you get 20, 30 people doing this, then before you know it, your practice starts to pop up in in Google searches for like optometrist near me or audiologist near me. So these reviews really count a lot towards whether or not you get whether or not you appear in the Google Maps at the top. Those top 3 listings in Google Maps usually appear on the organic Google results, and that gets a lot of click traffic. So reviews, I think, and I mentioned this last week. So Google reviews are a really important thing that you want to pay attention to. And not just Google reviews, but social media mentions in general. Like I'm on Reddit sometimes, not often, but on Reddit I see the threads where people are asking for recommendations for, like, can you recommend a good LASIK surgeon in Melbourne? And people will talk about who they recommend and so on. Facebook groups. So I'm in a Facebook group for scleral lens wearers. I don't wear scleral lenses myself, but I'm interested to see what people have to say about them. And in the Facebook group, people are always asking for recommendations. People are always asking, hey, I'm moving to Adelaide, so do you know anyone can you recommend anyone who's a good optometrist to talk to about scleral lenses? So these are all multipliers, right? These are all the hidden multipliers that practice owners often don't take into account. So it's not just that first transaction. It's not the first visit. It's all of these. It's all these other things and other benefits that you get once you open up a relationship with a new patient, right? So supermarkets have been doing this forever. They might advertise like a cheap product, like cheap carton of milk or something. They get people into their shop because they know once they're in there, once that person, that customer knows where they are and how to find them, and they become aware of all the other things that they sell. They make up the profit on all the other stuff, not that loss leader that they initially got the customer in for. So I think in healthcare, I think a lot of these initial exams, like routine eye exams, routine hearing exams, they're almost like that. They're almost like a loss leader. I mean, I know you're probably making some money out of those types of consultations, but it's not where the really exciting revenue is going to come from. Does that make sense so far? Does that really resonate with your situation? If it does, can you type a 1 in the comment box? Does that make sense so far? Just type a 1 if it does. All right. So how do we increase patient lifetime value? Okay. So this is an important question. So one way we can do that is by increasing frequency. So like most booking systems, most patient booking systems have some sort of SMS reminder that goes out to remind people of their annual checkup. It might be by email. Beyond SMS, there's MMS, where you can actually attach like some sort of rich media. I don't know if many practice booking systems or practice appointment management systems actually use MMS because it costs a little bit more. But I think they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you do use MMS reminders, it's an opportunity to include images of maybe like new frame brands that you've got in stock, something like that. Or if you're an audiologist, maybe an opportunity to include an image of some of the high end hearing aids that you've got in stock. Telephone follow-ups for high value patients. So there is a service in Australia. I posted a blog article about this on our website a year ago, I think it was. So I think it's called Eye to Eye is the service name. Yeah, Eye to Eye. So Fatin Tobaya is the owner of that. So they actually take on that responsibility of doing like telephone recall reminders. You can talk to her if you like. I don't get any sort of like benefit for that. I'm not an affiliate in any way, shape, or form. But I just thought I'd mention it. So you don't even necessarily have to do it with all of your clients. I mean, there's the if somebody comes in and they purchase a pair of Cartier frames, premium frames, it might be worth putting a note in your patient management system that this is someone who's really worth following up with next year, because they're someone who is a high prospect of making an equally premium purchase the next time around. So little things like this can really make a difference to your margins. Educate patients about what it is that you offer. So this comes down to simple things like maybe having like in practice displays, like while people are waiting around for their appointment, that if you've got stuff on the wall, stuff on the like pamphlets sitting on the table. That helps. In the consultation itself, of course, you should be having those conversations about other things that you can do, other services, other clinical services that you can offer. Email newsletters, right? So this is something that it kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because I keep suggesting email newsletters, and I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, they don't really take action on this, and it's a missed opportunity, because marketing comes with a cost. Okay, I think you know that. So marketing always has some sort of cost attached to it, but email marketing is one of the most cost effective channels available to you. So you can get like a free email account. We use MailerLite. MailerLite's a really good email marketing platform. You can get a free account, and you can get up to 500 subscribers with that free account. Now, and with that account, with your email marketing list, you can send out newsletters every month, every week, if you like. And it's not all just promotional spam. I mean, it's an opportunity for you to actually educate and help your patients to understand about some of the eye care and hearing care issues that they need to know about. You can educate people about why they should be buying 100% rated UV protection sunglasses, for example, or what if you're an audiologist, what is tinnitus, what are some of the treatments available. So people don't know what they don't know, and so email is a really cost-effective way for you to educate them about that. And people do read their email. It's something that even people of all ages do. Social media. So your engaged patients will follow you on social media. So people who have come in and they've had a good experience, they often will check out your social media, your Facebook page, because of the meta algorithms. They're likely to see you in their feed, particularly if you're posting regularly. So social media, Facebook, Instagram is a really visual medium. So if you've got some kind of new brand, new brand frames, by all means, you should be posting on Instagram. So Instagram's a really visual channel. It's a good place where you can inform your patients about changes that are happening in your clinic. Like if you're introducing if you are introducing like a new OCD scanner or something like that, you can use that to explain what that actually means in terms of patient benefit. Video, I think if you want to educate patients, the very best way you can do that is through video. I think that the internet is every year becoming more and more video orientated. I can remember 20 years ago, maybe 2006, there were businesses that maybe still didn't have a website, and you could get away with it then. But now in 2026, if you don't have a website, it just kind of looks weird. It looks unprofessional. I think fast forward 10 years from now, if you don't have a YouTube channel, it's going to look weird. I think it is, because video is the way the internet's moving. So why not get ahead of the curve? Video is a very engaging medium, right? You wouldn't be here today if that wasn't true. Blog articles. So blog articles also are a great way to explain what it is you do. So you're explaining to your patients, but also on top of that, you're also explaining to the algorithms. You're explaining to Google. You're explaining to like ChatGPT, Perplexity, these AI tools that people are using more and more every day. They need that kind of content to really understand what your clinic is all about and recommend you. So, for example, like last year, I was helping my parents put a new roof on their house, and I went to ChatGPT and I said, can you recommend any good roofers in my area? And ChatGPT came back with some recommendations. So these LLMs, large language models, these AI platforms, they pull a lot of the data that they use for recommendations from blog articles, right? And something that's just a quick tip, something that's really popular right now is comparison articles. So, for example, one of my team members, we're writing an article at the moment about we're comparing myopia control options for teenagers. Looking at glasses versus soft contact lenses versus ortho K versus atropine. So these type of comparison articles are really good. And humans, for humans as well, people often look to these blog articles when they're getting close to making a decision, and they're just comparing. They're comparing A versus B. So a well-structured, well-presented blog article can really help people at that decision point. Podcasts. So I actually have an unpopular opinion. I think everyone should do a podcast once in their life, right? Why do I say that? Well, I think, video is maybe something that has a high barrier of entry for a lot of people. People are worried about how they look on camera. Podcasts, you don't need to worry about that, right? So I'm talking about just an audio podcast here. You don't need fancy lighting. You don't need fancy cameras. You don't even actually really need a fancy microphone. There are some apps you can download, and you can just do it. You can do a podcast on your phone. You can do it. You can do it sitting in your car, right, while you're waiting to pick up the kids. You could record a podcast episode there. And I know you're looking at this and shaking your head, thinking, no, nobody's going to be interested in that. Who's going to listen to me? Well, if you're a clinic owner, creating a podcast gives you some shareable content. So it gives you something that you can link to in your email newsletter. It gives you something that you can share in your social media channels, put on your Facebook page, right? Something that you can embed into a blog article on your website. And I don't guarantee many things in this world, but I guarantee if you do a podcast, then your true believers, your loyal customers, they're going to eat that up with a spoon, because I think in today's world, people are craving authenticity. So there's so much AI slop out there today that if they hear like the voice of their trusted optometrist, their trusted hearing care professional, then they pay attention to that, and they appreciate it. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but that's my advice, is like, at least once in your life, have a go at podcasting. It's really not that hard. If you go to the opticsdigital.net website, actually, you'll see that in the main navigation there's a tab for podcasts, where I've actually done a podcast, or have a few episodes of my podcast for dry eye treatment professionals, where I've interviewed people. I've interviewed clinic owners about the dry eye treatments that they offer, different types of treatments. Sharon Flora, who I mentioned before, she was one of the people who I interviewed for that. If you're interested, by the way, if you do have a dry eye clinic and you'd like to be on an episode, then reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk about that. Word of mouth multipliers. So, last week we talked about how word of mouth can be an effective way of growing your business. So, but don't just leave it to chance. Don't be passive. There are ways that you can actually systematize word of mouth referrals. You can prompt people to, mention your clinic to their friends and family when they're coming in for their routine checkups. You can offer some simple referrals, simple referral incentives, like, give this code to your friend when they come in, and we'll give them 5% off their second pair of glasses or something. I'll let you decide what that is, but there are simple ways that you can incentivize that word of mouth. So other ways you can extend patient loyalty. So something I've recommended in the past is a VIP club newsletter. So when people like let's take the example of optometry again. So if people are coming in for their checkup, I highly recommend that you get them to fill out a patient survey. And there's a lot of great information that you can get from that. But you can also get them to opt in for your newsletter if that newsletter is about, let's say, giving early access to new frame brands that you might have in on your frame board. Or you could also offer like special discounts to club members, that sort of thing. So it could be like a free VIP club that people opt into, who are raising their hand to say that they are interested in being notified about premium brands. So that could be a really good way of building patient loyalty, because people like to feel a little bit special. They like to feel as if they have access to something a little bit exclusive. Birthday messages, so who doesn't appreciate getting a birthday message? And it might seem like it's a cheesy gimmick, but nevertheless, there might be people out there who don't get any happy birthday messages. You might be one of the few messages that they do get. So why not? Why not just recognize people that way? So telehealth. So I think this is something that's sort of I think it's a growing thing, or it has been growing since the pandemic. So that could be synchronous or asynchronous type of service. In Australia now, I believe that therapeutically endorsed optometrists have e-scripts available. So like if you need to send a script for some sort of topical medication, you can do that. You can do that online. I believe that the patient gets some sort of like a QR code they can take into the pharmacy. So I'm not sure how that works, but I know that e-scripts are available now. Even something asynchronous, like getting a patient to fill in the ocular surface index questionnaire if they've got dry eye disease. That's something that can all be done online, and it just makes your clinic that feel a little bit different from the crowd. In-person engagement. So like I've got clients who every so often they have a frame day in their store. Like one client I'm thinking of, she had a day where they got the Swarovski people in, and they sort of had a special day where they showcased all of the stuff from Swarovski, and it went really well. The people who walked out of there with purchases. That event became something that she could talk about and share on social media. And this person-to-person interaction, this face-to-face interaction, is something that goes a long way towards building up loyalty, building up that long-term patient value. You could also do this with educational events like a lunch and learn patient workshop. Throw on a little bit of catering. It doesn't have to be too expensive. Talk to your accountant, but it's probably tax deductible as well. So things like that, where perhaps you can have a workshop where you talk to patients about what is ortho-K, what is orthokeratology, how does it help people who are either adults, and also how does it help kids to control their myopia. So I think orthokeratology is something that a lot of people just really don't understand, and they're surprised when they do learn about what it is, how it works, and the benefits of it. I think you should build pathways for your patients. So what I mean by that is, like, let them know in advance about the types of products and services that they might be naturally interested in the future. And I'm thinking here about things like Plano sunglasses for contact lens wearers. So if you're an optometrist and you get a patient into contact lenses, then not only is it a business opportunity, but I think you've got a professional responsibility to make sure that that person gets UV protection for their eyes, right? So so that means, like, making sure that they understand that they need sunglasses. Ortho-K, orthokeratology, right? Even more so. So patients who are now eyewear free during the day, they've got to have those sunglasses. So I think you should build those discussions into the process. Parents with young kids bringing their kids in for those early infant eye exams. You should be letting those parents know that myopia control is something that they're going to have to consider in the near future. The earlier, the better, right? Glaucoma treatment. So I was talking with an ophthalmologist the other day, and she said, these are her words, that if somebody has issues with glaucoma and they're coming in for cataract treatment, then that cataract procedure is a once in a lifetime opportunity to also get a glaucoma procedure done at the same time, since the eye's already being operated on. So it's an opportunity to put in a stent. I think she was talking about kind of two birds with one stone. Earwax removal. So for you audiologists out there, so as you know, people who wear hearing aids have more issues with impacted earwax. So you might want to have that conversation early on with your patients, that if they do have wax buildup issues, that you can come in and you can clean that for them using microsuction and so on. And so the last couple of ideas here, I'm just I'm throwing a lot of stuff against the wall for you. This is kind of like more of a brainstorming exercise than anything. I'm not saying you have to do all of these things. Like eyewear consumables. So particularly if you've got patients who are on daily disposable contact lenses, or they've got contact lenses and they need to reorder their cleaning solutions. So it might not be a big money spinner for you, although I've had some clients who say that it does make a quite a good contribution to their bottom line. But it might be something that you want to think about introducing into your practice, just as a customer, just as a patient convenience service. I'm not sure if you know about in America. I think it's more popular than Australia, but there's something called a Dollar Shave Club, where you pay like a monthly subscription, and every month they just new razor blades just turn up at your door. You don't even have to go through the process of reordering. And I don't know if many optometrists have adopted that model, but I think it's an interesting one to think about. And the last one, and again, this might be a little bit out there for you guys, but concierge healthcare, right? So this will come as a surprise, but from what I learned the other day, if you wind the clock back to the 1930s, maybe even later, a very large proportion of doctor encounters were home visits. So something like 40%, this is what I read, something like 40% of all doctor interactions were at home, which sounds crazy today, but I think times have changed. I think by the 1980s that percentage was like down to 1% or something. But I have heard that it's getting a bit of a resurgence because high net worth individuals who are time poor, there's a whole business model now about concierge healthcare, where people can pay like a monthly membership fee, and that gives them 24/7 access by SMS or something. If they've got a problem, they can get in touch with their doctor. So I'm not sure how any of that would work for you, but it's something to just make a mental note of, I guess. Mobile hearing care, mobile vision care, that's a big thing. Like I see a lot of these services that are set up now just purely for mobile. So they go out to like nursing homes and so on. because people, as I said, the population's aging. A lot of people aren't as mobile as they used to be. So something like that could really make you stand out as the choice. If, let's say, one day a month you do home visits. Like I said, this is just brainstorming. So does that make sense? Does that sound like, do any of these ideas sound like something that you might want to do, or something that you might want to introduce into your practice? If so, can you drop a 2? Can you type a 2 into the comment box? I'll give you a minute. All right, so we've talked about ways. Does that sound like? Should not play with my phone while I'm on a live. Yeah, so we've talked about ways that you could increase your patient lifetime value. So I suppose the next question that you're all asking is, okay, that sounds great, but how do I actually calculate this number, this average patient lifetime value? So, I mean, it's not meant to be an exact science, okay? So we're not trying to this is not an accounting exercise. It's just trying to get a rough sense of what each patient is worth to you, and what you can comfortably afford in your marketing budget. Now, you can do this on the back of a napkin, or you can get more sophisticated with it, and maybe use AI as a tool to help you calculate this stuff. So I played around with this just the other day, where I took on the role of a hypothetical optometry practice, and I wrote a long ass prompt, which I put into Claude AI, and Claude asked me a bunch of questions. It took me about 5 minutes to answer all the questions it did ask me, and it came back with a number. And I think, this is hypothetical, and but it is sort of, I think it's in the ballpark of what a long-term patient value would look like. It's saying that the estimated patient lifetime value for me was $4,680 within a confidence range of 3,600 up to 5,400. And so there's a lot of assumptions going into that, of course. And the old joke about averages. So if I walk into an elevator with Bill Gates, then the average net worth of everyone in that elevator is $25 billion. So averages can sort of distort things a little bit, but I think it's still a useful exercise to do, and I think it gets really relevant if you're doing a marketing campaign for a specific type of patient. So if you're about to do like a Facebook ads campaign, or a Google ads campaign for, let's say for premium spectacles, for example, or for premium hearing aids, or for LASIK procedures, right? I think you really do want to have a good sense of what value would you get from each of those conversions, because that's going to determine how much resources you can put into those campaigns, right? So you really want to know what your break-even point is. So like I said, so I went through this little exercise with Claude AI. So if you're interested in this, if you want me to share the prompt that I used with you, can you type PLV prompt into the comments, and I'll send it to you. It should work also on ChatGPT and Gemini. You'll need to probably play around with it. It's a work in progress, but I think it's an interesting exercise to go through. So we've got this number now of like what a patient's lifetime value is worth. Maybe we've got a sense now of like what we can afford as a marketing budget. So how do we use this knowledge to scale your clinic? So I guess, as I said last week, that really depends on where you are right now. So in my digital marketing agency, we like to start each client relationship with a comprehensive digital audit. So we look at where you are, look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, what are your goals, and what are the gaps in your marketing strategy. So we start with that blueprint. We create a roadmap for you. You can ask my agency to implement the roadmap, or it's a document that you can take away to someone else if you wish. That's totally up to you. I think the first thing that we need to do is make sure that you have your foundations right. Okay, so we can't scale what isn't working. So that would mean having, for example, having a professional, mobile-friendly website that converts visitors. So something that has all friction removed from it, from the booking process. Having a fully optimized Google business profile. I talked before about the fact that you really want to appear in Google Maps, and having an optimized Google business profile is an important part of that equation. Having a consistent social media presence, right? So I talked last week about the fact that people, when they get a referral, then they tend to do their due diligence, which means going checking out your website. Does the website look professional? Does it look like it's being maintained? But they will also check out your social media. They will look at your Facebook business page. So if your Facebook business page looks really janky, there's been no activity on there for years, it's a really big red flag. Okay, so that's something else that we need to think about fixing as part of getting the foundations right. Blog content, right? I talked about how blog content helps humans, but it also helps search engine, also helps AI platforms to understand who you are and recommend you. Stage 2 would be how do we build a growth engine? Like how do we turn these patients into bookers and advocates for your brand? So putting in place reputation management systems, like how do we get more of these Google reviews? So there are systems that we can put in place that will actually get that stream of reviews happening. Conversion rate optimization. So for example, do you have is there a clear call to action on your homepage? If somebody, I see this from time to time. We come to somebody's homepage and it'll be like, welcome to ABC Optometry. And then I've got to look through the page to find out what I actually need to do next to make an appointment with them, right? So conversion rate optimization, that's important. I talked before about the fact that I'm a fanboy for email marketing, right? So if you don't have an email marketing system in place, this is something that you should consider, having some kind of a lead magnet. So we just went through an exercise this month with a client where we developed a freebie PDF that people could download for it was around visual hygiene and like tips on how people can prevent digital eye strain, things like that, prevent myopia. So a whole heap of tips, and this is a freebie that you're offering people in return for their email address. And once you've got that email address, then you can keep the conversation going. But you do need that lead magnet in the beginning. So this is something that we would look at in stage 2. So at stage 3, scale what's working. So if you've got everything in place, if you've got the foundations right, if you've got this growth engine right, then stage 3 would be where we actually think about putting budget into some sort of Google ads targeting, some sort of meta ads campaign. There are even some blue ocean opportunities out there that you might not have considered. So that's basically what my agency does. So if you are an optometrist, if you are an audiologist, if you are an ophthalmologist, and you do have a sense now of the long-term value of each newly acquired patient, and you would like to actually talk to me about how to scale your clinic, then you can reach out. So you can do that through my website, opticsdigital.net, or through LinkedIn, or you can email me directly. So that's it for today. So I hope that this has been a value for you out there. So if anyone has a question, would you like to drop it in the comment box, and I'll try to answer it now. So last chance. All right. Well, so I think we'll wrap up there for today. So thanks very much, and I'll be back next week. And so have a good day.